It's a pleasure to be with you today. We do have a number of panelists to share their thoughts. Some of them have other commitments they have to make today, so we're going to move fairly quickly. The Honorable Ed Rendell. He served as the 45th Governor of Pennsylvania, General Chairman of the Democratic National Committee during the 2000 presidential election. Governor.
And thank you very much for that warm welcome. And really, it's interesting. I was thinking about what I was going to say today, and I have some substantive things I want to say to you. But this is all about two agencies that I have tremendous, or two institutions that I have tremendous respect for, not being willing to show the courage of their convictions and do the right thing. And that's the United Nations and the United States of America. Two institutions that I grew up believing were the hope of the world. And in both cases, the U.S. and the UN have not done the right thing by the residents of Camp Ashraf. They have not. They have not. The United States has a special responsibility because we entered into a contract with the residents of Ashraf. Each and every resident has a signed contract from us saying, we will protect you. If you disarm, we will protect you. They disarmed, and you've heard from General Phillips and others that the disarmament was complete. Colonel Martin will go over that today as well. They disarmed, and did we fulfill our obligation to protect them? No. In 2009 we didn't, and in 2011 we didn't. And as a result, 47 people are dead, and hundreds more were seriously injured. And now, when the fight is on for what's going to happen to the remaining 3,400 residents of Ashraf, the United States is not acting with the courage of its convictions. The United Nations stepped in, and we were told by our own government, by the State Department, that the MOU was signed between the UN and the government of Iraq, and the MOU would take care of the residents of Ashraf to make sure that they would be held in a place that met humanitarian conditions, at a place that allowed them to bring their personal property, to bring their automobiles, that they would be taken care of in every way. And the MOU has been routinely violated. It hasn't been lived up to in almost any form, shape that you can conceive of. And yet, we do nothing. The United States doesn't do anything, and the UN doesn't do anything. We don't do anything to make this an even agreement. Let's take a look at what the residents of Camp Ashraf have done. Because of the leadership of Madame Rajavi, every time we've been asked to do something, we have agreed. Sometimes compromising the things that we want to do. As many of you know, there are 6 or 7 of us who routinely, on a weekly basis, get on the phone with this Ambassador Fried, who's a Deputy Secretary of State, and we discuss the movement. And Ambassador Fried will tell us, well, you have to talk to Paris and get them to do this, this, and this. And we get on the phone and we talk to Paris, or we do it through email. And we get Paris to make one compromise after another, and then Paris has to convince the residents of Ashraf. But each time we compromise, the other side, the government of Iraq, taking its orders from Tehran, doesn't live up to their side of the bargain. And we've seen convoy after convoy. We've heard from the State Department, let's just get this convoy moving and then we'll deal with those problems after this convoy is going. Because if we don't get this convoy moving, something bad could happen. That's what we always hear. Something bad could happen. We weren't so worried about something bad happening in 2009 and 2011, were we? When 2009 happened, we didn't reposition American troops to live up to our bargain to protect the residents of Ashraf, did we? But we're worried that something bad might happen, that this arrangement is going to get derailed. So we're asked to compromise. They're never asked to live up to their side of the bargain. Now, just recently, I guess a few days ago, Madame Rajavi wrote to all of us, her friends in America who have been pushing the cause of the residents of Camp Ashraf and pushing the cause of delisting. And she asked us to ensure that 7 things were done. And I want to read them to you. I think many of you are aware of them, but for those of you who are not, I want to read them to you because when you're finished hearing them, you'll be shocked. 1, she wants Camp Ashraf to be inspected now by either UN or U.S. forces. Why? So we can prevent, when the residents of Ashraf are gone, so we can prevent the planting of weapons as an excuse for doing something against the residents of Camp Ashraf. We saw our own State Department lawyer essentially mislead the court by saying that the State Department wasn't satisfied that there had been total disarmament. And fortunately, Colonel Martin, General Phillips, and others, they went nuts because they were responsible for overseeing the disarmament, and they went public and said, yes, we can tell you the disarmament was complete because we oversaw it. American generals, American colonels, we oversaw it. That State Department lawyer did not tell the truth. We wrote the Justice Department asking them to inform the court that what their lawyer said was incorrect, and the Justice Department hemmed and hawed and in the end didn't do anything. And that's the way it goes. So Madam Rajabi wants an inspection of the camp by independent observers so they can record there were no weapons, so that the Iraqis can't come in and plant weapons after the fact and use that as justification. Second, she wants an agreement going forward before the 6th convoy leaves that there will be adequate utility vehicles for transport of water, fuel, and sewage. Easy. Absolutely an easy thing to agree to. But you remember in Convoy 5, the utility vehicles, they took off and left Ashraf on the way to Liberty, but halfway there they were told to turn back, that they couldn't go to Camp Liberty. Number 3, the disabled. Madam Rajabi asked for 6 housing containers and 3 specially equipped vehicles to take care of the disabled residents of Ashraf as they move to Liberty. Number 4, that Camp Liberty as swiftly as possible be connected to the electrical and water grids of the city of Baghdad. So we don't have to worry about bringing water trucks in. We don't have to worry about generators, that we'll get our electricity and water from Baghdad like every other citizen does. Number 5, green space for recreation, canopies for shade, construction of sidewalks so the older residents and the disabled can walk freely without fear of tripping or falling. Number 6, a guarantee that the property, the immovable property and what personal property remains at Ashraf can be sold. And in fact, as many of you know, there's an Iraqi businessman who has made a reasonable offer for that, but the government of the Republic of Iraq refuses to let that agreement go forward, refuses to let the property be removed by the merchant and the money given to the residents of Ashraf. And 7th, a guarantee that, especially in light of Ambassador Kobler's trip to Tehran, a guarantee that the Iranian government will have no say over the disposition of the residents, over the residents' fate. Now, Madam Rajabi, as you know, is a very well-spoken person, and she often coins phrases that are right on topic. She said at the end of this, "I believe the most striking thing about this list is its modesty," meaning we're not making outrageous demands. These are basic, simple demands. And we have told Ambassador Fried, and I think there's agreement among Paris, that unless these demands are met, we're not sending the 6th convoy. Because if we send the 6th convoy and then the last convoy, and everybody's in Liberty, we lose any remaining leverage we have. So the time for us to stand, and the time for the U.S. government to take a stand, and the time for the United Nations to take a stand and enforce that MOU and tell the government of Iraq that it must comply, that time is now. There's no time for excuses. Because look at what's happened here. The Iraqi government has been harassing, they've been mean, and they've been cruel. For no purpose of their own. Not to save money, not for any strategic or security reasons. Consider some of the things that have happened since we've been in this process of relocating residents from Ashraf to Liberty. Number 1, when the vehicles arrive in Liberty, we're not allowed to use forklifts to take the heavy material off. That would be easy. Instead, the residents have to painstakingly carry it off by hand. Why wouldn't they let us use forklifts? How is that going to endanger the security of the Republic of Iraq? How is that going to cost them money? We're willing to pay for the forklifts ourselves. It's just mean and cruel. Next, we hear all about it's difficult to get the water done. Ambassador Kobler says, well, the water will be hooked up sometime before Ramadan. Well, that's 2 months from now. And we've been told the same thing. It's coming next month. It's coming next month. It's absolutely ridiculous. The residents of Ashraf have said, let us do it. We can connect it ourselves, the water. We can't connect the electricity, but we can connect the water ourselves at no cost to you. They wouldn't let us do it. Why? As Mr. McComb said, why? There's no explanation for it. Electric, the same thing. We'll see. We're working on it. And yet, at the same time, we're not allowed to buy fuel from Iraq. We have to go outside the country to buy fuel, and the costs are outrageously high. They're depleting resources. Why? Is there any reason for that? Is there anything you can think of that the government of Iraq benefits by that, other than just being mean and cruel and harassing and doing the bidding of Tehran? Shade, something that's simple and basic to human beings. You heard Mr. McComb talk about 120-degree temperatures. They originally agreed to allow this mesh to be brought into the camp. The residents purchased the mesh. It came to the front door of the camp. It was turned away, and the residents couldn't get their money back because they'd already paid it. It wasn't the contractor's fault. It was turned away, and there is no shade in 120-degree temperatures. So, I think it is time, without a shadow of a doubt, for us to draw the line in the sand, for us to tell the United States government and tell the UN no more coddling the government of Iraq. It's time for us not to be wusses anymore. It's time for us to stand up and do what's right. Ensure that there are humanitarian conditions in every way, shape, or form. Shade, water, air conditioning, the basic things that are necessary to survive. It's time for us to insist that the government of Iraq lives up to the MOU, that the Memorandum of Understanding that they signed voluntarily and willingly. They signed it. It is time for the UN to declare Camp Liberty a refugee camp, not a temporary transit location, but a refugee camp. But if the UN categorizes it as a refugee camp, certain rights would adhere to the residents of the camp that for some reason the UN doesn't want to give them, because they're afraid for some reason of the government of Iraq. We need to delist. And as Mr. McComb said, it's up to us up here, it's up to all of you U.S. citizens to as loud and clear say, all right, we've done what you asked us to do, now delist. Delist so we can speed up the process of getting countries to accept our residents. And it's